So hi, everybody. This is the Openscapes GitHub Clinic, where we're going to practice and explore how to contribute from the browser. So to get started, the goals for today is we're going to start off with talking about a growth mindset and the motivation for using GitHub. This is a powerful way to contribute and collaborate across responsibilities within a team. And then we're going to focus on using GitHub as a tool beyond code and archiving. So this is something we're going to talk about together as a group. We're going to talk about how the idea of a GitHub commit is how you contribute to a project that's managed by GitHub. And it's also how you can publish your work and contribute to open science. And then we'll explore using GitHub issues, which is a tool for project management, which is also really powerful. So those are the two things we're going to explore today, are GitHub commits and GitHub issues. And then we're going to give you time and breakout rooms to practice GitHub from the browser. And I also wanted to say that this clinic is really designed for everyone across levels or experience with GitHub to learn and help each other as we go. So this is really meant to welcome people who have just created their GitHub account for the first time, or have used GitHub to upload or archive, and also folks that have used Git for a long time, but maybe haven't collaborated with GitHub or are thinking about how to help others on their teams. So we like to start off by thinking about a growth mindset here. A growth mindset is the power of yet. It's the idea that you develop new abilities through practice and that you're able to learn new things and new tools. And this is compared to a fixed mindset where abilities are static. So this idea is a really powerful mindset to have as we learn new skills. And this is research done by Carol Dweck. And there's some links here that you can follow. So this growth mindset idea is really important for thinking about the way we're working collaboratively with and openly with each other, and really thinking about future you and future us. So what can you do and learn now that will help you and others in the future? And so we can bring this thinking to GitHub. So really, collaboration is the most compelling reason to manage a project with Git and GitHub. So when we think about collaborators, we're thinking about yourself, future you, and future us. So folks that might join your project in the future or contribute to your project in the future. You can also think about collaborators as yourself currently, but across computers and devices. So if you have a laptop and a desktop, or if you're working on a local instance and a cloud instance, GitHub is a way to collaborate across those things. It's also a way to collaborate across different contributor styles or roles. So whether you're an active maker or a reader or a reviewer, and how that might change across projects, GitHub is a really powerful way to think about that. So we can think about GitHub using the idea of climbing. And this is an illustrated series created with our collaborator, Allison Horst. So the idea of GitHub is that when you're using GitHub, you can navigate with more obvious, safe, and streamlined routes that let us focus on the sciencey things we want to do. So on this left image, where this climber has really a clear path that are labeled with the activities that they've been doing. And then on the right, but working without GitHub can be disorienting, with too much time spent sifting through past work to figure out next steps forward. And in this image, this climber, this is pretty sad and tangled without clear documentation of what their path has been. So really, it's this idea of a GitHub commit is what helps us focus on the work and not the bookkeeping, because GitHub's job is to do the bookkeeping, and it takes care of otherwise time-consuming versioning and pretty unrelenting file tracking. The other thing that GitHub is really powerful about is GitHub issues help us support others in existing work. So it really helps. So this idea of issues helps us with organizing, improving documentation, asking and answering questions, and having that all be in the same place with the code or data or documentation of the project, so that this is a way to organize and contribute together in the same place, whether or not you're writing code or working with data directly. So to bring this a bit more concretely, we can talk about what is GitHub. So the traditional answer for GitHub is that it's a company, it's an online collaborative platform, and it's built on top of Git. And Git is software that does the file versioning and bookkeeping. So I kind of think of, GitHub kind of makes that kind of personal file keeping and versioning. It makes it social. So GitHub is kind of like this social online platform that helps you collaborate around bookkeeping, file versioning. You can think about this like, you can think about GitHub like sort of like Dropbox or other software where you can work locally and sync things to the cloud and archive them, but you have more control when you do this. So in these images on the right, what my work will look like when I use GitHub is that I will have a folder with maybe one copy of the file I'm working on. In this case, it says create ghdemos.r, and you can see that there's metadata involved with the person, Jules32, that did something to this, and there's a documented message that says I added a to-do here, and there's also a time stamp. And that's what I will see when I look in my files, versus kind of the previous approach that's, with the sadder climber, where you'll see a pop-up window that says, do you want to save something? And your heart kind of stops. You're thinking, did I make a change that I want to save? Or you might have a folder that is filled with your hand version, with the same copy, multiple copies of the same file that you've versioned by hand. So GitHub kind of helps you get away from that kind of clutter or anxiety and towards a cleaner workflow where you're focusing on the work. So that's the traditional kind of thinking about GitHub and what it does. And I think a non-traditional way of thinking about it too is that it's a really powerful publishing platform and project management system. And this is really where I found the value of GitHub, and where this really changed my work and pretty much my life. So as a publishing platform, this is a new way for sharing your work and for communication, and that means both internal communication and external science communication or publishing. So the files that you share with GitHub can become websites. And that was so transformative for us when I was working with the Ocean Health Index, because instead of sharing a PDF with collaborators and then emailing them again when there's another version, you can share a URL one time, and that will always present the latest version, even as you make updates to typo fixes or whatnot. And the second is it's a really powerful project management system, and this is where you can have both short-term and long-term to-do lists that are collaborative and linked to your files and attributed to different people. So we'll explore both of these today. So the kind of framework of GitHub in a nutshell, to have a bit of terminology, is that a repository, which we call repos, are the main unit of thing. And it's essentially a folder. It's a folder that's a contained place that allows you to have permissions at that kind of folder level or repository level. So you're able to say who can contribute directly to your repository. You can make your repository public. You can also make it private and include specific people. And where that repository lives is within a user account or an organization account. And so, for example, I have a personal user account called Jules32, and I also am part of the Openscapes organization. And so in this screenshot on the right, you'll see that in blue, it says Openscapes is the organization where this repository, in this example called 2022 NOAA AFSC, there's this that's the repository that is part of the Openscapes organization. And then the way you contribute into that repository is through committing your work and committing the files that you contribute, and also through issues. So let's explore a repository together, and we'll see what the workflow is like to commit a change. And I also want to say that we're not going to cover local Git and GitHub setup and workflows today. We're going to do this all from the browser. And there's many excellent resources for you to get yourself set up. So those are linked here. So let's take a look at a repository together. So I am going to, let's go to a repository together. This is at the URL github.com. The organization is Tidyverse, and ggplot2 is the repository name. And you can see that linked, that listed right here at the top as well. So you're always able to see where you are. These are the files that are part of the repository. So there's both folders and files down here. And something that this repository has is something called a README, which tells you what is going on in the repository. So this has become such a customary thing to include in a GitHub repository that GitHub will display that README kind of as a home page for the repository. And as what's custom with software is that the README will tell you what this software does and how to install it, and then any additional learning resources. So this is an example with a popular and powerful visualization package in R. It shows this README. If we go back up to the top, some things that I look at immediately when I look at a GitHub repository is I look at how recently it's been updated. So this information is listed here. This is the last time somebody committed their work to the repository. So you can see this was 29 days ago by this user, and this is what they did. They improved an error message. So this gives you a sense on how current the work in this repository is, which is as you're reusing people's packages or thinking about contributing to a question or whatnot, looking to see kind of how recently folks have been working on it is a good thing to look for. If there's a website associated with the repository, that will be listed here. And this has also become customary with GitHub repositories, is to have other documentation that tells you what's going on with that repository, so that you have another view of this work that isn't the file structure here. That is what GitHub shows. So one other thing that I can show you is that as you click into these folders, you can open up whatever file you'd like to see. This is just this is a file that you could click here to view raw. I just wanted to show that the URL will change as you click in places. So you'll see that there's a bit of GitHub metadata here with this blob main, but then the data folder and this particular file I'm looking at are included in the URL. And that's also listed here as you navigate through. So this is a way that you can share this specific file with somebody as a URL. So let's go to another repository. This is one that I've created for our clinic today. This is, it looks the same as the other one. Every GitHub repository you ever come across will have this same structure, so you can kind of get familiar with navigating around other people's work and your own work. So this is in the NASA Openscapes organization. This repository is called Mentors 2022. And I am going to click into our folder for, you can see this has a much shorter README and fewer files in it. So, but it was updated 4 hours ago. So you can kind of get a sense of things just from what we've already learned. If I click into this GitHub Clinic folder, this is a list of files with everybody in our cohort today. So this is what we'll use for the for you to practice on in a moment. But what I wanted to show you is what we'll do together. So this is my demo folder here. This is a markdown file, which is a simple text file. It's similar to a .txt extension. So what we're going to do today is we're going to practice contributing to GitHub from the browser. So working here in github.com, we can contribute changes through commits. And so you'll practice creating several commits by making small edits to the file that has your name on it, as I'll demonstrate here. And everybody has their own file that they can work on. So when you're in GitHub, from the browser, you'll have a little pencil icon right here. And this is how you can make an edit to this file. So if I click this little pencil, this is going to show me an editor view of my file. And this is somewhere where I can now edit and write as I go. You'll see that the URL, I've been trying to help you keep an eye on the URLs. You can see that it says edit right now. So this is in editor mode. Anything we do here will not be included in our file until we take the active action to commit this file. So that's what we'll do together. So our first task is to commit an edit from the browser. We've just clicked the pencil icon in the top right, and now we'll make an edit to this file. One idea is to fix this typo. So let me fix this typo. Oops, typo. And I'll add an exclamation point. So now to commit these edits to GitHub, we're going to scroll down to the bottom of this page where it says commit changes. And committing changes has two steps. We're going to write a human readable commit message and then press the green button to commit changes. So let me show you what that looks like. If I scroll down to the bottom of this editor window, you'll see that this is where GitHub is asking me to commit changes. So I'm going to write a message to myself that will remind me what happened here. This is kind of this metadata for this edit. So I'm going to say fix typo with an exclamation point. So that's the first step, is to write that message. And the second is to press this green button that says commit changes. And when I do this, I come back to this main view we saw before, and I have the opportunity for the pencil again. And you can see that the URL doesn't have the edit indicator anymore. You can also see that this history now says that Jules32 fixed the typo, and this last commit happened right now. So I'm going to stop there and see if these slides review what we just did together here. And what I'd like you all to do now is to go into your breakout rooms and from your repository, find your name.md and click on the pencil and then practice those small edits and commit messages. And you can chat with folks in your breakout group, and we'll come back together to share what we learned and take some next steps. Welcome back, everybody. Let's have a look at what you did while you were in the breakout rooms. So we've all been collaborating on GitHub. So we're going to go and look at all of our commit messages together, and also have a look at a few other things. So if we go to back to our home view here, I'm going to refresh the page at our NASA Openscapes Mentors 2022 page, and I can have a look at all of the commits. So I'll have a look at all of the commits, which are over here. So I can see that Michelle has been adding a few commits as she changed the list. And the way I can explore this is by either clicking on some of these buttons over here to see the commit details. So if I click there, I'm able to see like green is what was added and red was what was deleted. And this is showing me what the exact changes looked like, her edits. I can also I have other options over here to look at these differences in different ways. I can also click these 3 lines here and view the file, view history. There's a lot of different features you can look at to see kind of what changed here in this file. I can also use my back browser keys to go back and look at another example. So if I click on the text from this commit message where I added the trailhead PNG file, it will actually show me the image. And actually, what's neat is this was a plot that had changed. It would actually show me the 2 plots side by side. So that's actually an interesting thing to use while you're developing different work. You'll see that, we've been talking about URLs. Each of these, the bookkeeping that GitHub is doing includes adding these kind of alphanumeric tags to the commits that we make. So you'll see that showing up in the URLs as well. So that's something to keep an eye on if you, let's say I wanted to go back into this point in time and look at the whole repository, what things look like at the moment when Michelle Personal changed the list. So this is a view back in time where I'm not in sort of the present view, and this is also where I can see this in the URL. But if I wanted to, this is a period of time before that PNG was added, for example. So this is a way to kind of navigate around GitHub and understand the commits. Something else that's really powerful here is that you've also made a website while you've been working in your breakout rooms. NASA Openscapes is the organization, and Mentors 2022 is the repository. And we can create a website from that using NASA Openscapes.github.io. So it's the organization name .github.io with the repository name afterwards. So looking at this URL, NASA Openscapes.github.io/mentors2022, this is displaying the README file as a website. And I could also say GitHub Clinic, which is the folder name, /Michelle. And by hitting return, this is now a URL that has, that it doesn't have all the GitHub kind of file system infrastructure. It's just a simple web page. So this is a pretty powerful way to communicate your work in an open way, and is kind of the beginning of how you can start to build websites from GitHub. So this slide kind of talks through that a little bit more as well, and as well as this slide kind of showing how the organization name and the repository name can become this website.